I've talked before about how stressful it is to work as a pencil pusher in finance, and how stressful my prior job was, being a cog in a machine, a pencil pusher. I've learned a few things as a result of this. 1, the world is driven by profit and economic class struggle. 2, I'm part of this and it affects me, despite any privileges I have. And 3, it really hurts, and it makes living life to the fullest kind of difficult. It's troubling to know about, and I'm still trying to get through it. So let this video be kind of a reflection on that process and that journey that I've gone through, and hopefully it'll help someone in the audience watching it. I want to first atone for the wrongs I made in my last video. I believe it was my last video. The video I made about Berserk a year ago. Just like any fandom that I do like, there are bad faith actors, which really ruins it for a lot of people, because I never saw it as something that is hyper-masculine, anti-woman. I always saw it as something that is empowering for anyone who reads it. I just wanted to get that out of the way here, because it's really not what a lot of people think it is, but a lot of people get the wrong idea. And I can't blame them if they find issue with the littler things in it. Let me take this opportunity to expand on an idea in that Berserk video. Mankind's struggle against fate and their avoidance to become fatalistic. Lots of people would call this willingness to endure a product of natural selection, which definitely served us in our survival in the past. Contrary to other species, humans are different in that we treat this drive to survive as something mystical, not something that keeps us from starving, but as part of our defining traits, which feeds into so many cultural identities that it's hard to really describe the effect optimism has had on the human race without just recounting the last 2,000-3,000 years of human cultural progress. It's no surprise then that optimists who are so entrenched in their belief system that they become borderline delusional exist. Plenty of people live life carefree and with a bright outlook. They see it as their lifestyle. But can you go overboard? Living an optimistic lifestyle because you have to is one thing, but what if you live an optimistic lifestyle because you feel entitled to feel good, to feel happy about yourself? In a capitalist superstructure, optimism is a commodity. It's offered to you in exchange for work. Hope is commoditized. Not to say that optimism isn't genuine, but that's how it's presented. Optimism is sold to you. By optimism, I don't mean toxic positivity. I believe in a system where everything is commoditized and where everyone encourages each other to pursue their own individual interests. It's bound to reach a point where one has no choice but to look at themselves and only at themselves to lift themselves out of whatever spat they're in. This breeds a type of toxic mindset, if you ask me. Toxic positivity is something that's been prevalent, and particularly in the last decade. Go on to any Instagram feed or LinkedIn profile. Oh my god, fuck LinkedIn profiles.
30-year Disney veteran, Space Ranger, well, I don't get these LinkedIn titles, and a speaker. We work while others play. In Disney operations, your shift may end at 3 a.m., it may start at 3 a.m. In Disney operations, you are expected to work nights when you start your career. In Disney operations, you're expected to work at least one weekend, day-night, every week throughout your career. In Disney operations, you're expected to work holidays throughout your career. In Disney operations, a corporate simp way of humble bragging that they basically don't have a life other than their work. Here's a dude that sees right through the bullshit. He says, it's sad that some people are so desperate or so gullible that they will sacrifice much of their own freedom and ability to make near future plans and appointments for a company that can be very inflexible and can fire them without notice and without cause. Been there, done that. Apparently this man is a keynote speaker that does nothing but tell you how to live and work a better life without actually working himself. We work while others play. Like, what's wrong with playing? What's wrong with enjoying life? What's wrong with just having a life outside of work? You bragging about this doesn't make you look good. It just makes you look like a goofball for giving up your entire life to work for Disney.
I'm here to win the world over, and I have that grind set mindset. Nothing can stand in my way. Not even systemic problems that are frankly impossible to overcome without the help of others in that same situation. Not that it's not beneficial to have this forward-thinking mindset. I mean, like I said, I made an entire video where pushing past the struggle is not only imperative, but healthy. You need to be aware that some problems can't be resolved by cleaning your room. At the end of the day, you can look good, you can have a great personality, you can have a great friendship network, you can ultimately be a generally content person. But I would argue to be truly a happy person, you need to find meaning in your life. And finding meaning in your life means pursuing the goals that you want to pursue. And that is simply not the case for a vast majority of people, particularly in the United States. In other Western countries, it's less so, but it's unfortunately still prevalent in the West. If I could make this video a 3-4 hour rant about Andrew Tate and how toxic his mindset is, I would. Toxic positivity is not optimism, it's delusion. It's covering your eyes to avoid what makes you uncomfortable. That's not optimistic thinking. That is delusional thinking. And instead, pick up a book, pick up a pen, pick up a computer. I don't know. Anything that you want to do. So many people use this Sigma mindset to push them forward into positions of power. That's a major problem. Because one major issue with this toxic positive kind of thinking is that if you don't acknowledge these systemic injustices that put you in the place you are in the first place, you're going to find success and just exploit other people and put them into that exact same situation. The pattern goes on. Nothing gets resolved except your problems. The only way to really guarantee long-term contentment and happiness is to find what you want to do and to go after it and to fight against the structures that be and limit your options in the first place. Ignore that hot garbage. Doomerism is interesting. As an aesthetic, it's honestly not that uncommon. Doomers have been around for a pretty long time, and you can see it in anything from late 70s movies about post-war Vietnam veterans and PTSD. Holy shit. To ancient doomers. And of course, a lot of doomerism itself draws from the nostalgic late Soviet era aesthetic, Balkan kind of aesthetic, as a result of the perceived abandonment of a dream empire type utopian post-socialist society. Again, and you always see this in the later stages of big empires that once saw themselves as glorious and had high hopes at the beginning. That's another discussion. What I think is new about it, though, is the defeatism. Doomerism, kind of like the Tao philosophy, preaches acceptance of one's position in life and of one's circumstances. People adopt Eastern religion in order to make sense of where they are in life, and a lot of doomerism act as a cover for the boredom and angst of Western men, and as a result wallow in their own comfortable life. And of course there's the clear incel overlap with them, which I'm not going to really delve into because of obvious reasons. Doomerism wants you to not move forward. If you go onto any of these doomerism subreddits or forums in general, you see the same things repeated over and 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 over. People romanticizing their stagnation, people romanticizing their lack of empathy, their lack of social skills, like they have nothing better to do with their time. I feel like I'm being a little too unfair to social skills. That's totally fine if you don't have any. What I mean is that the ideology of doomerism is completely opposite to change and completely opposite to human nature. It's nihilistic, pessimistic, and completely and utterly counterproductive. People make jokes about it being a pro-bourgeois kind of elitist philosophy because that's kind of what it acts like.
Think about civilians on the ground in the war in Ukraine. Think about people who live every day under the US embargo in Cuba. Think about people in Yemen facing the worst humanitarian crisis that we've ever seen. And think about the women-led autonomous administration of Rojava, who are daily under threat of genocide from Turkish and Russian imperial forces. Every single one of them does not have the privilege to sit there and be a doomer. It's fucking fight or die.
It's very convenient for people in power to see a doomer give up, especially when there's a lot of them, because, as has been said before, giving up and failing look the same to the people oppressing you. Doomerism shouldn't be romanticized. It should be locked in a cage and observed. Steve Wallace is a Canadian vagrant or vagabond, depending on whatever your job is and whatever people you gotta deal with. Steve makes his living on YouTube from making these stealth camping videos where he finds himself in user-submitted locations to camp either 1 or 2 nights in. It can range from deep caves, mines, railroad tracks. He'll even make the occasional bold move and sleep behind a Home Depot or a business. Most people in these situations would get a little concerned about their well-being, and he definitely does.
Okay, my heart just stopped there. That's exactly what I was always afraid of. It's a dog running up to the campsite. Whew.
The guy frequently puts himself in precarious situations. But yeah, he's often on his own, doing his thing, cooking meals, never complaining about anything. He continues to do so because it's what he loves. Despite any of the tragedies that have happened recently with him, the guy still makes videos and he still clearly enjoys what he enjoys, and in every video he makes sure to make it the best quality he can. Because in his own words, he goes back and watches his own videos, the highest quality, and to him the highest quality is the most genuine. He's cautious, very cautious a lot of times, but one has to be when they venture out into the wild, into the wilderness, with little supplies. Because of that, his anxiety is less problematic paranoia and more reasonable caution. He takes his hobby as seriously as he takes his channel. It's meditative, therapeutic to watch because it's meditative and therapeutic to him, and it's inspiring. Makes me want to go out and car camp with a brewski. It's hard to be in this state of mind and hold fears about the future. The guy has control over his fears and don't let them dictate where to go and where not to go. He's in control of his emotions and serves as a good role model to anyone watching his videos. Every day is not seen as a slog to him, it's seen as a way to escape from whatever troubles are bothering him, big and small, and he pays it back, always making sure every camping spot he's stealth camping in is cleaner than the way he found it, and telling everyone else to do the same. He treats nature with care, and he treats himself and his viewers with care. Every day is an opportunity for him to play in his sandbox. He inspires others to explore, big and small, and he inspires others to pursue their hobbies and their interests. He does what he loves with the ease of taking a shower, no matter how daunting the things he loves are. His videos are like a blanket tent, if you will. He demonstrates the joy of traveling, taking advantage of your free time. Granted, he has access to a plentiful multitude of natural wonders in his province of Alberta. Still, he takes advantage of it, visiting every nook and cranny. His attitude toward life is unique. He's just another chill guy who faces his fears, big and small, in order to move ahead, because he trusts himself enough to get out of any sticky, potentially traumatizing situation. And that's what makes him inspiring and fun to watch.
Okay, that didn't work well. We've got, seems like hail coming down. Trying to cover things up. That rolled in quicker than I thought. And it's kind of a disaster. Okay, so basically, we gotta hunker down as much as possible here in this wonderful hailstorm. We didn't get any storms all summer, but yeah, being underneath of a tree is about the best place you can be in this situation.
Cuba, July 26, 1953. A multi-stage attack on several barracks throughout the country ended defeat. Around 65 rebels die in the fighting or after being captured. Castro and his brother Raul were captured and sentenced to 15 and 13 years respectively. After immense pressure from the Cuban people, they were released among many other political prisoners. After meeting Che Guevara and Spanish Civil War vet Alberto Bayo, they formed the 26th of July movement, which in turn launched a series of assaults on various military installations over 4 years. Student protests started in 1955 and only grew in number. This fighting got more and more intense, largely because of U.S. arms to the Cuban government, which ended due to the arms embargo in 1958. Those in power got guns, ammunition, and even napalm. Castro's army increased more and more in response. The final offensive took place in 1958 and lasted until 1959. In skirmishes like the Battle of La Plata, the rebels defeated a force of 500 men, capturing 240 while only losing 3 on their side. These victories started getting more and more frequent, ending in the Battle of Santa Clara. Forces of rebels led by Comandantes Rolando Cubela, Juan el Mexicano Abrahantes, and William Alexander Morgan took the city on December 31st, 1958, and led the President Batista, finally fleeing to the DR hours later on January 1st, 1959. News of this reached Castro and the 26th of July movement, who promptly waltzed into Santiago, thereby establishing the new revolutionary socialist government. South Vietnam, January 30th, 1968. After years of warfare in inhospitable terrain, early attacks struck South Vietnamese armed forces. This was followed by 80,000 PAVN and Viet Cong troops striking more than 100 cities across Vietnam, launching the Tet Offensive. This started a long line of military victories for the Viet Cong against invading U.S. interests. This eventually led to the U.S. withdrawal in 1973. The Western strategy of high kill counts and body ratios turned out to, surprise, surprise, be pointless. Whereas the Vietnamese resolve and determination led to victories in several large district cities and provincial capitals, took advantage of instability in the South and American fatigue. Manchuria followed a similar strategy. The initial Japanese invasion lasted from September 8, 1931 to February 28, 1932. The land served as a lifeline that helped a struggling Japan through the Great Depression, both in morale and in food. Chinese forces resisted diligently but ultimately were no match to the Japanese war machine, losing autonomy of Manchuria after losses in Kikar. Eventually, the Manchurian state ceased operations to retake the province early 1932. Despite counterinsurgency campaigns by the newly formed Japan-friendly government, guerrilla warfare was a prime tool against the empire. Now, summarizing the history of Mao's involvement in the use of asymmetrical warfare to aid in removing Japan and Western occupiers from the Chinese mainland would take a whole other video to summarize.
So what does this all mean?
Like with Cuba and Vietnam, Manchurians lost a lot.
Perhaps we need to take a cue from countries like China and Vietnam and Cuba, from their people. Whether you like their state or not, they didn't treat optimism like a drug. They didn't treat hope like a cure. They used it to make themselves better as people. Optimism itself had to be bounded by realism, had to be bounded by what they could and couldn't do. Because they had no time to be negative, all they could do was look ahead. We all have little battles. Let's look at each win as a great accomplishment, as part of a bigger person.
As Solinsky put it, optimism brings with it hope, a future with a purpose, and therefore the will to fight for a better world. Without this optimism, there is no reason to carry on. If we think of the struggle as a climb up a mountain, then we must visualize a mountain with no top. We see a top, but when we finally reach it, the overcast rises and we find ourselves merely on a bluff. The mountain continues on, up. Now we see the real top ahead of us and strive for it, only to find we've reached another bluff. The top still above it, and so it goes on, interminably. Knowing that the mountain has no top, that it is a persistent quest from plateau to plateau, the question arises, why the struggle, the conflict, the heartbreak, the danger, the sacrifice, why the constant climb? Our answer is the same as which a real mountain climber gives when he is asked why he does what he does. Because it's there.